We are recording. Casey, I'm going to add you as co-host. Would you mind just monitoring for once I start, just letting folks in?
Sure.
Thank you. And Casey, can you introduce yourself to this group? It's much smaller because we record it and send it out to folks that can't be here, but.
Okay. Well, hi, everyone. I'm Casey Moreland. I'm the new Accelerated Credit Manager for the Willamette Promise. I was previously at Western Oregon University as an assistant visiting professor, and I was the liaison for the writing. So I've worked with the district, and now I'm working for the district. And I'm excited to be here. It's nice to see and finally meet all of you.
And Casey's pretty awesome and pretty helpful, and so she will eventually kind of transition into having that central leadership role for all of the dual credit courses. But with Spanish, as you know, this is a particularly kind of complicated undertaking, so we're taking it on together as a team. All right, so today our goal is just to go over kind of the administration of the exam, and so we'll have some fun stuff to share with y'all that sort of encapsulates the work and direction that we're taking this. And so I have a PowerPoint, and so we are recording, and we will share this recording and PowerPoint with everyone after the fact so they can review. So let me get to my PowerPoint. All right, can everyone see this okay now? Matt's giving me a thumbs up. All right, so we're going to go through just high level. I think it should take maybe like 45 minutes, depending on the feedback that everyone has on how we administer this. So I'll start now. And so I really just wanted to start by just acknowledging the moment that we're all in, and just everything that we're dealing with. And to me, it's like really meaningful that I think as a teacher, it might be easy to say, this is just too much this year. It's hard enough for me to teach 7-8 hours a day, prep for 3 hours, and then talk to a bunch of dark screens all day long. So I just acknowledge your workload. I have guest spoken at a number of classes this year, and it seems just hard to engage kids. It's just the jobs that we all have and love are just, I think, a lot harder than they used to be. And so it's pretty special that this group of people is still willing to engage in this work, with just the additional kind of layers of complexity that have been added on it due to the COVID pandemic. And so just really want to acknowledge y'all being here, but also say we're here to help. So if you leave today going, this is difficult, I don't know how and if I should proceed, I would encourage you just to get in contact with us, because we can support you in any place that you need supported, sort of within our capacity. So thanks for being here. So the presentation overview today that we'll navigate, a lot of it will be familiar. We've taken kind of bits and pieces of how our operations have worked previously to this, and so a lot of them we've carried over. So we'll talk about how students register in OR Skills and with Western Oregon. We'll talk about how to get your students enrolled into the Canvas course. We're going to take a little bit kind of a different approach this year. We'll go over proctoring, which is new since we're trying to make this option available for students to test from home. And so that's a new feature that this take from home assessment contains. We'll go over kind of the exam and Canvas course structure. We'll talk about the academic dishonesty waivers that students need to submit prior to engaging with the exam materials. All of the teacher and student responsibilities we'll outline. We'll talk about grading. I have some good news for you there for any folks who are feeling a little bit overwhelmed with the complexity of the rubric from last time, we've thought of some things to potentially save you time in other ways. Then finally, we'll talk about when your students can take the test. And I should have had one more slide. Okay, so I do want to start with this slide first, because this is a bit of good news. And so we thought really carefully about this, and we considered that we are not just allowing students who are currently enrolled to test, but we're also allowing, if you wanted to, that you could try to facilitate this exam experience for kids who were maybe enrolled first semester, who were no longer in your course, or who were enrolled last year. It's up to you, the teacher. But how we felt as a program was that generally students are given 2 opportunities to take this proficiency assessment. Many of our students in the heritage setting would earn 8 credits on the initial attempt and 4 on the attempt 2. So we took this to our board and we said, for this year, we'd like to increase the number of credits that students can earn to 12, so that if any student missed out on the opportunity to test at any point, that they would be able to kind of earn that normal amount that a student would earn in 2 attempts. So your students can earn 12 credits, an entire course sequence. It doesn't have to be, but we felt strongly that we didn't want to penalize students who only have 1 attempt when generally they would have 2. Any questions about that? I will be pausing for questions. And Casey, if you can help me monitor the chat too, if anything pops up, that'd be helpful. Okay. All right. So our student registration is exactly the same. It's always been. I'm going to minimize so I can click out and actually go to the link here. It looks like I'm having trouble pulling it up. So I'm just going to chat this link. For some reason, my computer is having a caching issue where I was unable to share this earlier. So I'm going to stop sharing for a sec and I'm going to chat. And so the registration link I'm putting in is the same registration link that we've always had. It's the same landing page where students go to register. So you can email that to them. I know a number of you have like Google Classroom and like stuff like that where you can get that link to your students electronically. Students only need to register once. So if at any point they've already registered with the Willamette Promise, they don't need to do it again. If they do try to do it again, it tells them they're already in the system. It says SSID already in use is the error code students get. Send them the link and just ask them to register. If you ever have questions like, okay, I've like pushed this link out twice, I've asked kids to register with Western. If you like want to send Casey or I your roster and be like, hey, are all these kids like registered with Western? You're more than welcome to do that. And we can check on that for you. But being an assessment-based learning program, we don't have dates or deadlines. So like students can register until the end of the year. There's no really obscure information that we request other than the SSID. A lot of times students try to put in their school ID or their social security number. Your SSID is your state testing number. It's the same number students use to take the SBAC and other kind of tests like that. So, all right, I'll go back to my sharing. I don't know, again, I'm like having this weird caching issue with my computer, so I don't know why that's not working. But any veteran teachers, you all have done this before. It's the exact same process as it's always been. Students can register. It probably takes like under 7 or 8 minutes for them just to enter in their information. So the registration process will be the same. As soon as they register, you will be able to find them in ORskills. the approach we're taking with this is right now, we're not even doing a lot of OR skills training. I'll talk a little bit about that later today. But right now, we're just focusing on kind of the exam logistics since this is kind of a new way of assessing. All right, we covered that. Okay. So in order for your students to be eligible, what you'll do is you'll fill out of every student that you want to test. We are going to share with each teacher their own individual course roster. And so the roster example is right here. I pulled it up on my screen. And so that's all we need from you in order to get your students in the right Canvas course. So we need their first name. We're asking for a middle name, but if a student doesn't have a middle name, you can leave that blank. Their last name, their email, and whatever email they use here, it can be personal, it can be a school email, but just know that like that's going to be kind of a consistent thing. That's the email that the course invitation would go to. So if a student registered with their personal email and they're checking their school email for that course invitation to arrive, it's not going to. So because we asked for the SSID, we won't be emailing this document to you and asking you to send it back to us. Instead, we're going to share with you in Google your own unique copy. Because technically, it is a FERPA violation to send an email with a student's name and SSID. That's considered protected information. So we can kind of bypass that requirement by creating a roster, sharing it with you, and just having you populate because there's no kind of email back and forth. So how you approach this is up to you. Depending on who you want to test, if you want to limit the scope, you can just give us your current class roster, your period. If you did want to include students from a previous course that missed the opportunity, that were super bummed out, you can add them as well. It's just you'd have to determine what period or section, because for each period that you have taken the course, we will create your own unique course for that period. I'll pause right there. Any questions about this form? But this is how the students get added. That's all you have to do is just fill this out and we take care of the rest. We're trying to, again, provide those necessary supports so that you can be a teacher. So I'll pause for questions. Casey, is there any questions in the chat? I saw a couple things pop up. But.
Yeah, so, and where do we get their testing ID if they have forgotten it or never tested before? And then someone had said they can get their SSID from your school's registrar.
Yeah, you can just request with your front office, or for some reason, if your front office is not willing to cooperate, you can actually send us your roster and we can look it up in ODE for you. So either way you'd like to go on that. It's usually a pretty ask if you, a pretty easy ask if you ask your front office staff to produce that information for you.
And then Leonardo said, I intend to register a large number of students from last year. I'm not clear what period and section I would mark them in.
Yeah, and that's a good question, Leo. And I would just consider, there are probably a couple ways to go about that, but ultimately you're going to have to make your own decision. Like if you wanted to offer it like to kids, like not during the school day, then potentially like you could offer it after school or something. You might just create your own sort of unique period just for those students. And like sort of after you see the breadth of the presentation, you might think one way or the other, kind of what the best route forward is. But then, so yes, you can test those students, but what class they're in, it might become a little more clear kind of how we're going to administer this exam a little bit later.
Okay, and then Emily says, just to clarify, they're going to type in everything themselves.
The students or the teachers?
The teachers.
Yes.
Emily?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep, you're just gonna have to manually fill this in. So like Emily, like you're an experienced Canvas user, that might not make sense, but we're not just adding the students to Canvas, we're adding them to the proctoring software as well. So we have to have this kind of manual list.
I was just hoping there was a way that I was misunderstanding the ask. I understand if there's no way around it, but
Yeah.
Yeah,
and in like previous courses, we've just created the Canvas course for you, and then you share the code, students self-register. Because we have that sort of additional layer of proctoring software for students that test from home, unfortunately, we do require a roster. All right. So any questions about the roster? And it'll become a little bit more clear once we talk about exam dates and windows, when you need to get those to us. So that's the roster. Again, just a quick reminder, we do include middle name because that's how the proctoring solution is built out. But if a student doesn't have a middle name, you can leave that blank.
Okay, Adam, just real quick. So Paco wants to know, so do we add on the spreadsheet students that want to take the test or all the students in the class?
Just students that want to take the exam. Yep.
Okay. And Zahidi wants to know if they're getting the roster from us. So we're,
Yep. We will share with you via Google your own unique roster. Okay. I think I accidentally, this is the next slide. Okay. So proctoring, so some good news. The proctoring solution that we went with it works on all devices. A student can use it on their cell phone if need be. The only thing it has to have is just a camera, because this isn't an actual like application that students need to download. It's just a feature that can work through the web browser, and we're paying the bill for it. And it's usually $30 per student, but the Willamette Promise is just, we prioritized in our budget kind of equity of access to this exam, and we don't want an additional $30 bill to prevent a student from taking the test. And so no fee, we're going to take care of all of that for you. So that's pretty exciting, because that would add up, right? You know, if you're serving 50 students, that's a big bill, and we just didn't even want to get into that. We really want to ensure that all students can take this exam. So the proctoring system is called Wise Proctor. It's the most user-friendly proctoring software I've ever seen. And the good news is that you, the teacher, as soon as you fill out that roster and you get it to us, you may have even already received your invitation for your teacher account, but you will have access. There's no kind of limitations on how much you use it. We have actually done this for our math assessments all year, and I have not heard a single complaint about how the proctoring software works from teachers. In fact, some of them have even started to use it kind of in other classes just because they already had access. So they're like, why don't I use this to proctor other tests too? So I'll show a short video. The video is really short and fast, but it really is a user-friendly software. The only thing that you'll need to do in Canvas is just you create an exam code. Then students would go on to Wise Proctor, log in, enter that exam code. Just copy and paste it right from your Canvas shell, and then students could take the test. So it's just really easy. It works on Chromebooks, it works on iPads, a phone, any system, and it's free. There's no additional charges, because we've heard a lot in the dual credit community about those extra proctoring fees really kind of weighing students down. So I'm gonna click a video. I think I'm gonna have to take my, oh no, I don't think there's any sound on it.
Adam, one question. Do students need to have an active camera, a camera active during the exam?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
So let me show you how this works, and then I'll get into a little bit more about proctoring here in a moment. So I think it'll kick me over to this video, and we'll watch this video just really quickly. He does it really fast, but it just kind of shows the workflow of how easy it is to use. So the teacher logs in, and you'll get your credentials. And so if you had that class, you would just establish your class. You'd say, I want student here. I'm going to pause it because he goes really quickly, and actually just, I'm going to move this real quick because he goes a little too fast here. So at the very beginning there, so he just entered his credentials, and I'll just kind of pause periodically so I can show you what's going on. So you'll get your credentials. We'll set it up for you. So you create the courses in here. It's just you would create a course. So like Spanish period 3, Spanish period 5. So Ian, the person who's demoing this, really entered in very little information. Your students don't need tied to a specific course, because whatever exam code that you enter in, they simply just copy and paste that link, and it just sort of auto proctors it. It's really easy to use. So I want to proctor an exam. Okay, here is your exam code. Copy and paste. And so now he's modeling a student logs in, the student enters their credential, and we'll set up that account for them. Once you send in the roster, they want to take a test. They have to allow all of those permissions. They enter the class ID, and they entered, right there, I'll go back just a little bit. So they enter the class ID for whatever classes that you created, period 3, period 4, etc. They copy and paste the exam code. They hit begin test. Agree to the terms of service. So this is an old version of the video where you used to have a Chrome extension. You don't even have to have that now. But we have heard feedback that it does work best in Google Chrome, but can work on any device that just has a camera. All right, so now it's showing the experience here. So that's Ian right there modeling it for us. And so he's being proctored because he entered the exam code and moved forward. The proctoring, another reason, and I'll stop sharing just for a sec so I can see you all and see if you have questions. And I see there's 11 in the chat. Another reason why we did this, because we heard a lot about how nerve-wracking it can be for a student to see some stranger who's watching them take a test. There is no one watching. The student just enters in the class code, they enter in the exam code, they're videoed while taking the test. And this is an artificial intelligence software that flags for suspicious behaviors for you, the instructor, to go back and review. What we've learned in doing this in other courses, again, and I surprisingly have heard very little feedback, which is a great thing. It works well as long as you set up your class codes, your exam codes. But students feel comfortable knowing that only you are going to have access to that video. There's not going to be a stranger watching them take the test. As soon as the student is done testing, you have access to the video for as long as you want. It's saved there in the cloud, and can either go and watch them take the entire test, or you can just look at where the problematic behaviors occurred because the AI software flags those behaviors. We have had zero issues. The only feedback that we've heard from teachers is students are doing a great job. And just having a proctoring software mandated that it's just that there's really been no issues. So.
Adam,
Yep.
there's so are there accommodations for students that will not be able to activate the camera?
No, the only accommodation, unfortunately, would be to maybe bring them onto campus to take their assessment with limited in-person instruction, and then you would have to sort of administer the exam in person. But no, but that is the first time I've also been asked that, and I can check, but I'm inclined, unfortunately, to probably say probably not. All right, so and like we will do a series of short trainings, but again, we're going to give you access plenty of time ahead of when you schedule the exam. And so what we're encouraging teachers to do is like say you're giving them another quiz or like a speaking assignment, you already have access to the proctoring software, so just encourage them to maybe practice a couple times. The practice exams that we saw for a little while last week in our training too, you'll have access to those, and so you can require those to be proctored. So students can really go and practice that logging in, making sure they know how to access the site, etc. So one logistical hurdle here. So then, like other than sending us your roster, this is probably the most challenging thing that we have to ask you all to do. That in order to be FERPA compliant, we do have to have parents sign off that their kids can be recorded. The waiver here is in English and Spanish, and it contains the sort of FERPA requirements for allowing a student under 18 to be recorded. The difficult thing here is that you can't just send this link to the students and ask them to have their parents sign off. The parent has to receive the waiver directly via email. Just like we did for the roster, we're going to create you your own unique waiver that's specific to you. We'll give you the link. Then you're just going to have to send that out to parents and get them to confirm. That's something our attorney said that we have to do. We can't send it to students because students will just sign for themselves because they literally just acknowledge that they've read it. And just say, yes, I've read it. I give my student permission to be recorded, and they just submit their response and can input any concerns or anything that they have. And we've seen a couple. The only thing that we guarantee is that that it is FERPA compliant. They don't share data. As soon as you conclude the course, like once you've went back and the kid's testing, like everything's normal. It's only a 45-minute exam. We don't expect you to review it all, but you could go and just like review some of the red flags if there's something significant. But again, the proctoring service just usually takes care of all of that. But students who are under 18 do have to have a parent sign off for them to be recorded.
Adam, quick question.
Yep.
So I do have some parents who don't have any emails. Is there a way to send it by text or for me to deliver a paper copy instead?
Yeah, whatever works best for you, Dusty. I trust you all. If you have to approach this a little bit differently than everyone else, I am just kind of laying out the parameters, and you just have to color within the lines however you deem appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
Adam, I just want to double check on something real quick. So the teachers are going to tell the students that no one is watching. Is that right?
No. So like usually with proctoring software, and I actually didn't know this because I haven't sort of dabbled in proctoring software a bit, but it's usually like some stranger watching you take an exam, a hired person. And so we heard a lot of feedback on that not being a great experience for kids. So we wanted to go with kind of this artificial intelligence. So no one, so you can tell your students, honestly, no one will see them taking the exam except you, the teacher. Hopefully I answered that okay, Casey.
Yeah, that makes more sense to me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So again, that's probably our biggest logistical hurdle, but there's the best way that we can think to check all the boxes we need to check is just you, the classroom teacher, send it directly to parents. They're probably pretty used to getting emails now, and they would have to fill this out for their kid. So that's proctoring. If anyone is like super eager, and if you want to like try out the software and you want to start playing in it, fill out your exam roster, send it in, and your students will get the proctoring invitation, and so will you, the instructor. And feel free to test it, try it, until your students get comfortable using it. All right. Was there a question that just popped up in the chat, Casey?
Yeah, so just a question about the waiver. So the waiver comes back to us, right? This is my understanding, is that the waiver comes back to us and then we let the teacher know, right? Then we cross-check reference?
Yeah, so we have access to the waiver, and you, the teacher, do as well. We're both collaborators. It's just a Google Doc. And so like we can monitor together if you have a question, or it can just be kind of, that's something that you, the teacher, would handle. We'll show you the rest of the course structure. This might not be perfect, and here's what I'm gonna say. Like, say you have 2 students that don't have the waiver in, I'm gonna say maybe they can sign for themselves even if they're under 18. We want to try to comply with this policy as much as possible, but as always, I'm going to show some flexibility in providing access to students. And so best case scenario, you send this out to parents, you're testing 30, 40 kids, they all return it in a reasonable time manner. You can look at your results, see the students, and know that that's okay for them to take the test. If like any teacher is serving like 500 students, then like we can talk about how the Willamette Promise can support you. But I know the majority of you all are serving less. And so there might be a hiccup or two, but we'll get through it. All right. Okay. So the academic misconduct form, or the academic misconduct waiver, it's the same as it was last year for students testing. This waiver will be just stored in Canvas. It's a very similar waiver to what students enrolled in a Western Oregon online course would fill out. And so we've made it available both in English and Spanish. And I'll show you once we get to the course, the kind of demo course, you'll see how everything's packaged, in case you can talk about that a little bit. But these are not new. I'll click on just the English one just to show you the language. It's just the exact same waiver that students signed last year in Canvas. It's submitted to you, the instructor, just as a text entry in Canvas where they just say, yes, I've read, and acknowledge the waiver. Okay, did I skip one? Okay, so let's talk about when you can test students. This is something, if you want to take a picture, or you want to take notes or something like that. But we are going to allow 3 different testing windows. And again, we're trying to like confine it, but allow for autonomy. So this first testing window, I almost like didn't even want to create, but I know like we have some staff who was planning on going on like maternity leave and things like that. So we wanted to allow 1 testing window in April, 1 in May, and 1 in June. So testing window 1, again, I will send out this PowerPoint, but if you want to take a picture or something, testing window 1 is between April 12th and April 16th. Students can test. So what that would mean for you, the instructor, is that your rosters would need to be sent to us by March 17th. That's a couple weeks away. In the pre-exam materials, the waiver and all of that stuff. I think my AirPods died. Give me a sec. All right. Can everyone hear me? Good. Okay. Um, and then all of the pre-exam materials like the misconduct form, the WISE waiver, and some of the other items that we've created in the pre-exam checklist would be done by April 5th. Then students would be ready to test April 12th through the 16th. This testing window that we're giving you is just the window. You get to determine the day, the time, how it corresponds to your period, if you're offering it after school, before school, etc. We are just kind of providing you that week, and you can determine the time, etc. that kids will test. So again, this is like the exam window we wanted to provide if the other ones didn't work for you. But we would encourage you to really take some time, absorb this information, kind of go about it thoughtfully. This, I think, is probably exam window 2, the more reasonable window to test in. If you chose this one, you'd have to get us that roster with name, middle name, last name, email, and SSID and section by April 19th, which is probably a little bit of an easier ask. Students would have to complete all of the documentation by May 5th, and students would test the 17th through the 21st. Again, you set the time, parameters, and so teachers that want to take advantage of this testing window, to me, this might be the best one. If not, our third one is the first week of June that students could test. And so if you chose this window, rosters would be due to us by May 3rd. The pre-exam checklist would need completed by the 20th, and students would test the 1st through the 4th. This week, we've only done a 4-day week because Monday is a holiday. I believe it's Memorial Day. So I'll pause there and I'll pause there. Does anyone have questions about that? For exam security reasons, so kind of going back, all of the versions of the exam will be different from window to window. So if you, or even someone who like, say you decide to test window 2 and you have a student who like is ill and can't attend, then this last session could be a makeup session. Like you can test in multiple sessions too, because the exam will be different.
I have a question, Adam.
Yeah.
How would these dates correlate, and what assessments need to be graded by?
Yeah, I am going to allow for maximum flexibility this year in when you check stuff in. I think our MOU with Western says that like the final date that we need to have grades transcribed is by July 1, so we'll shoot for that, but we're going to extend the school year as much as we can this year to give you plenty of time. I do have some news at the end about grading and how we're trying to take steps to save you some work on the back end, which we'll talk about here momentarily. Anything else, Casey, pop up?
No, there isn't.
I think. All right. Another thing that you can do if you're having trouble sort of working with students and you're trying to serve students who aren't enrolled, and you're just having trouble connecting with them, just give them our contact info too. And like, we can reach out and try to engage and try to like get a hold of the parents and try to support you. From my line of thinking, I think that you, the classroom teacher, have the relationship with these students, that you're probably the best person to engage and jump through these hoops with them. So I would encourage you to try, but if you're having like, hey, Adam, we've tried to contact this student, can you call him? Yeah.
How long will the sessions be for testing?
You determine, so the exam is designed to be 45 minutes in length, and just due to the nature of the exam of having a natural progression, students will not take longer than 45 minutes. So that's a pretty firm time on how much it'll take, unless the faculty make any adjustments. They heard you all loud and clear that 20 seconds was not long enough, so they might make it so it takes a little bit longer. They were thinking about going to 40, 50 seconds. But even then, 45 minutes, an hour max. But if that changes significantly, we will communicate that out. Okay. All right, so signing up for the exam, we're just gonna go old school, very, very simple. You will email Addie Hal and you say, I want to test on this date during the windows that you've determined this time, and this period will test at this time on this date and this time, etc. So you can just communicate with Addie via a simple email. If you have multiple groups testing, just make sure you're very clear that it might be helpful too if you provide us with labels, like I have period 1 and period 3 who will be attempting this assessment. Period 1, I'd like on April 17th at 10. And then period 3, I would like on April 18th at 11. So just be really specific so we can set those up, because we will do that work for you. So just make sure to communicate with us as to when you want your exams ready. Another reason why we went with 3 windows is because we know schedules are changing as districts like attempt to bring kids back to some sort of in-person instruction, that there might be schedule adjustments. So that was another kind of impetus for providing those windows. Okay. Okay, so we're just good. You just email Addie and you tell her the time. If at some point your time needs adjusted, then just let us know, like, oh, we modified our schedule because now we're doing full hybrid. So my class is going to be at 9 instead of 9:30, and we'll make that adjustment for you. Okay, so here's a little bit of good news. I'm not going to ask you all to cross score this year. I'm not going to ask you to engage in cross scoring just at all. What our faculty have requested instead is that we are going to send them 50% of all of the exams from the students, and they are going to engage with faculty on campus in their own continuous improvement practices. So teachers will not have that lift at the end of the year. And so we hope that does save you a little bit of time, that you just need to check in student work and assign the grade. And Casey and I will kind of run a series of workshops as we get closer to that point, like maybe one after each exam period, showing you how to do that process. We've tried to simplify it. So for the artifact and OR skills, and again, you might not know what I'm talking about right now, but we have created a second version of the grade sheet that mirrors the one we've used in the past. And so this is the document. You can just save it as a PDF, check it in. All of the actual like assessment materials, student audios, written prompts are just going to live in Canvas. And so this is the only thing that we're going to ask you to check in for this year.
Question, is there a limit of students per section? So I think per exam?
No.
Okay.
No. Questions about that? So no like student audios I will need checked in. If you're a new teacher and you're wondering, like, what is this dude talking about? Just don't worry about it for right now. Just focus on the exam administration. We're going to figure out all of these other protocols later. For those of you that don't remember, though, this is where you'll enter in the student score, and this is where the score is calculated for you. Right here, we can see that I'll go over the presentation rubrics 120, then each interpersonal rubric is 180. So you just enter in the raw values here that the student earned. It gives you a composite score. Then that composite score corresponds to the WU grade that they get. So in that case, that would be a C in 202, an A in 201, and an A in 103. For Spanish grading, how it works is we allow for maximum flexibility being an assessment-based learning program. The composite score gives them the maximum allowable points. So in this case, that would say you've earned up to the C level in 202, but we don't penalize. It's like, that's a great score. We don't penalize students for doing well though. So the student would have the right to access any of the other courses under that composite score at the A level. Just like we've done in the past. Does that make sense? And like Casey, if you're like, you've never seen this before, I can explain this to you later.
Okay, that's fine. I just have another question.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. Let's say a teacher decides that they're going to schedule the entire class for one day and then a few students can't show up. Are there alternate times that they can make up the exam?
Yeah, I would encourage you all just to contact us and we can figure it out. We can like assign a test to a single student, but just if that happens, you just got to give us a little time and grace. Like, you won't be able to schedule it for 8 a.m. the next morning if they didn't show up to the 3 p.m. session. But if you give us a few days, we are happy to roll with the punches right alongside as you all have done all year with us. All right. So this is not published yet. This is still a draft form. But again, this is how we determine the grade. We enter in the raw scores according to the rubric. It gives us a composite score here. Then the composite score corresponds to a Western Oregon grade in proficiency, and we assign credits as needed. All right, we're nearing the end, folks. So again, no cross scoring. The only thing that you'll enter in this year for the exam is that spreadsheet I just pulled up. You'll have 3 fields to enter, or actually probably 4. One for the one each for the raw score, and then 1 for the composite, and that's it. Okay, I think it's to Casey now. I'll drive, but I think we want to talk about the structure of the Canvas course and what it's going to look like for you, because we've tried to kind of design this in a way that is very like linear and makes sense. So Casey, do you kind of want to walk us through the Canvas course?
Yeah, so basically what I did is I got a list of like everything that was suggested that we have here for students. And so what I did is I put everything that seemed like practice. So the testing tips for students, the rubrics, the study guide, and then the links to the audio scripts. And then I think it was the AP exam in one section. And then the pre-test checklist is kind of more like what has to be done and looked at before the test happens. And that includes the WISE waiver. And there's a link to the Google form there. And we added the academic dishonesty forms. And so if you click within lots of these, then you'll see more links too. So if you click on the academic dishonesty forms, there's a link to the Spanish and English version of those. So they have both available. I don't think that there's anything within this course shell that does not have anything yet, except for the day of testing tips. I know that, who was it, Adam, that was going to do something, a Chris or?
Yeah, our tech department designed this. And so they're going to make a little student tip sheet of just like, make sure to have your microphone on, make sure to have your camera turned on. If you're using Chrome, this is where you can do that. Just some kind of day of like review information that students can just reference just to make sure that when it's time that they're ready to go.
Right. And so that's all the pre-test. And then there's also the sets, the different sets here for the practice exams.
Yep.
And then, but to get to that point, they need the prerequisites. So everything has to be checked off. And so what they'll do is whenever this is published, they would go into the WISE waiver submission and there are check boxes for everything. And so once that happens, then they can take the practice sets. And then finally, at the end of this are the a link to the fee waiver and a link to be able to pay for the credit.
Yep. And so like Casey has a strong instructional design background, and so she did something that I wouldn't even have thought to do, but she made it so the students don't have access to the actual practice test until they've done the pre-test checklist. Like, so it's like very linear, like you can't like actually go on and practice the exam, etc., until you've completed the checklist. And so students will kind of unlock certain features as they move forward, which I think will be really helpful.
Yeah, I tried to do it in the, just an easy way where everything's there for you to kind of guide the students through, and then also for the students to navigate. I'm always looking for feedback though on how to make this more user friendly. So if you have a situation where a student goes in and then it just becomes problematic in any way, or you're clicking through just reviewing, just let me know. I could get things added in and moved around pretty quickly in there for you.
The faculty provided some really good resources that students will have access to under practice resources. Of course, the practice tests, right, that mirror the actual exam are probably going to be the most useful. But this website out of the University of Texas is really robust and provides kind of the question and answer, like input-output model that the exam follows. So this will be embedded within your Canvas course, where students can actually like identify according to ACTFL standards, if they know I'm probably an intermediate, they can look at, some actual examples of kind of a give and take between speakers. And it gets more advanced as you kind of go up the ACTFL standards, but this has a lot of really good examples where students can just go and listen to authentic audios. The other resource is they did provide, I think on the suggestion of one of the teachers, I think this link needs fixed still, Casey, but some of the information on the past AP audio scripts and examples for students to reference as well. So those two links in particular provide a ton of resources for students that are sort of designed in a similar format to what this exam is. The WISE submission waiver, since that's something that gets emailed directly to the parent, like Casey said, we just kind of made this a sign-off kind of honor system. They're checking that box. Yes, my parent has sent in the waiver. The day of the test checklist, we're just going to ask that they have read that they understand, they've turned that they know that on the day of the test, because they'll probably read it well in advance, right? That they know they need their microphone enabled, they know they need to go to WISE before they go and access the exam, et cetera, et cetera. Then the honesty forms, again, they just confirm, yes, I've read and I understand. And then they can take the practice test, and then on the day of the exam, it'll pop up there at the time that you tell us to, and students can take the actual Spanish exam. Okay, should we all take a deep breath and okay. So that provides like a really fast overview of what we're asking for you. So any questions, concerns? Does this seem, it seems like a lot right now, but we've really thought through this all. And we feel strongly that since we've designed the Canvas course and kind of that self-guided, self-paced, send us the roster, have the parents sign the form, to allow for their students to be proctored. And those are your two heavy lifts as a teacher besides grading and assigning WU credit. Again, we'll do some trainings at the end of the year on how to assign grades to Western. I don't even want anyone to worry about that right now. We'll train you on that later. Let's just focus on all of the other deliverables associated with this assessment. All right, I will send out this recording. We'll send out, I'll save the PowerPoint as a PDF, so you'll be able to access those hyperlinks as well. We've linked it all in one place for you, so it'll send you out to a folder where we've compiled all of the information for you, so you have it in one place. And I think with that, we'll say have a great night, and we'll stay for questions.
Thanks, Adam. Is there any update on the seal of biliteracy yet?
No, the only update is I am advocating for the exam to be included, and we'll wait and see. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Wish I had different news, Corey. Sorry.
Adam, I think this should be fixed now. I added the AP audio scripts as a file rather than a link. Can you check it on your end and see if that
Yeah,
works?
absolutely.
Adam, I have a question, but it's very different from the test. We are in the process of changing the name of one class, AP, pre-AP Spanish, to Spanish for Heritage Speakers, and the principal asked me, is this going to interfere with Willamette Promise?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, I don't see why it would. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah, like some dual credit programs at Alberto kind of do pay a little more attention to how the course is labeled on campus. We don't, though. Since we're assessment-based learning, students are just earning credit for proficiency. Yeah, you can label your courses anything on campus. It won't affect anything on our end.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have a question from Sherry. Is there an update on the writing length? The length of writing.
No, they're still, the two things the faculty are deciding currently is what to do about writing length and how long to allow for the students, just because in like what they've done before is they have honored your feedback on everything. So if they change the writing length, I can see them leaving the 350 word cap in place, but shortening the minimum required length based on all of your feedback. So it's like that, wanting students to, like allowing students to write enough, but because some students will want to write that much. So Emily, yes. The way, no, what did they, I think they, I don't know, Emily, right off the top of my head. Was there a concern that you had?
No, I just couldn't remember.
Okay, I can pull it up.
That's okay. I can just calculate it. I think I took a picture of the spreadsheet that you showed that out of like 480, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll just calculate it. It's okay.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
I have another question about kids who, like, if you know, within your class, if there's like the 2 or 3 that struggle with organization, and they've all done the checklist, and then I tell them to do it, and then we get to the day where I'm going to walk them through the practice tests, and those few students haven't finished their checklist. If I were in control of it, I would just give them access to the practice test, because at that point, them getting practice with everyone else is really valuable, and they can ask questions and hear others. But so would there be a way for that to be just turned on at a certain point for our class if we wanted that, like the unlocked, I guess?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can. I mean, I can do it, or you would be able to do it to go in and make it not a prerequisite.
Oh, perfect. Great.
Yeah. And so whenever,
That wouldn't mess up other teachers. It would just be for my course.
well, so it's going to be copies of the course, right, Adam, that we send out to
Yeah.
the different instructors. Yeah. So it's going to be, you can keep it as it is, or you can mess with it yourself too. If you get to that point and you need some help or something, just let me know and I can help you. We can add or take away, whatever, however you want to do that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good questions, Emily.
Sorry, I was wondering if anyone was in a similar boat as me. I'm trying to figure out what to do with last year's students who weren't able to finish. I know we can do limited instruction, but I don't know if I don't know if I can do that,
So
or if I should just make them retake the new exam.
let me translate for Maria. I serve 1 million students at McKay, and I'm wondering logistically how to. Just let me think about it for a little while, Maria. Nice to see you, by the way. I feel like I haven't seen you forever. I am just glad to see you. But
Yeah, I turned on my camera today. It's nice to see you too.
I don't have an answer to that right now. But if we need to like facilitate some kind of experience outside of the classroom, and like say you didn't have the bandwidth to score or something like that, I might be able to talk to faculty, or I might be able to help you score a few of them too. So.
Yeah, I was just thinking it might be easier to have them take the new exam.
Yeah.
But the concern now is those students now most likely won't be eligible for the seal with that exam.
Yeah, and the seal is kind of a disappointing point of news. I would argue strongly that it should easily qualify, in that it's the Oregon Department of Education that maybe doesn't have the infrastructure to advance work quickly, which is really disappointing. And it's like I hate to pass the buck, but I'm going to, because we presented to the group, we provided them with every bit of material that they asked for. We have professional linguists design these assessments. They've been vetted. And they just, I don't know what they're doing, but I keep emailing and keep harassing, and they just don't get back to me. So
We'll see.
Yeah.
Thank you, Adam.
Yeah, sorry, Maria.
It's okay.
And then Edalberto, Jamie, and Paco.
Just want to say thank you and see you next PLC.
Yeah, see you next week. We're do one more kind of norming training for the exam. So.
Okay, see you then.
Yep, absolutely.
I guess I just wanted to clarify and make sure I have this right. So I know you mentioned that we can bring back our students who didn't get to finish testing last year, and I've got a bunch of those, and I'm excited. They're really excited. They've been asking me all year long when the date is for that, so I can tell them. I just wanted to clarify that our students who were seniors last year, who were hoping to get the seal of literacy and are now off at college, we can't test those kids, right?
Not for the seal of biliteracy, but we do have approval to test students to earn college credit who have graduated.
Okay, so I'll reach out to them and I'll let them know that, and I'll
Yep.
see if they're interested. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I have 2 logistic questions.
Yep.
For the students who've graduated, if if I don't have their personal emails, like I just probably need to let it go, right?
Yeah, I mean, and it's also like, what are you willing to take on as a human being, Emily?
I'm just gonna let it go, but I just wanted to put it out there.
Yeah, and like students, if you felt like encouraging them, like they could go take the CLEP examination and just, I mean, it's a little more money, but if a student really missed out on the opportunity, they can earn credit by proficiency at a community college by taking the CLEP. But yeah, to me that sounds like Jamie, who was talking, she's at a probably serves a lot less students than you do, so it might be more manageable for Jamie to facilitate that. For you, it might be a lot though, Emily.
Okay. Well, and I also don't really want to open that can of worms, because if I offer that for one kid, then it's like, why didn't you try harder to like track me down while I'm at college? Anyway. My other question was, I kind of have two kind of groups of students in my class: the kids that are going to earn a ton of credit and the seal, and then kids that are maybe not earning like as much credit, but they're an important thing to consider